Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is in Eau Claire at the Chippewa Valley Tech College campus. We're talking to Mel Pittman of Plum City. He's a Republican candidate in Senate District 31. Mr. Pittman, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Well, it's good to be here, Steve.
Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Mel, since we talked before the primary, but let me ask you about one issue that's recently arisen. There's a report out from the Legislative Fiscal Bureau saying there could be a budget deficit in the next session of more than $1 billion, potentially much as $1.7 billion. On your website, you stress that you've been a dairy farmer making business decisions for 37 years. So my question is, if you're a state senator and there is a budget deficit in the next 2 years, how should it be fixed, sir?
Well, first of all, being fiscally responsible, you try to live within your means. And, this is something that was somewhat unforeseen, but maybe the legislature hadn't held enough funds back in order to guard against this happening. So first of all, I guess we would approach the biennial budget carefully and make sure that, the numbers are where they're at. If we are short on funds, we'll have to look at two different things in my mind. First of all, how much are we short? What are areas that we could maybe curb some spending? And the other is there a way that we can gain some revenue by doing something different? Gaining revenue not necessarily by raising taxes, but is there some other opportunity that will bring revenue in the state that will help us get out of this deficit or potential deficit?
Some of the Democratic candidates, sir, said a place to look if there is a deficit is to cancel some of the 3 tax breaks that Governor Walker and the Senate and the Assembly approved over the last 20 months. Your response to that, sir?
I think that that's a possibility, but, getting for someone that's not been in the state legislature before, I think I'd want to get my arms around all the possibilities first before committing to any one particular one, because someone that probably has served in the state legislature might have a better idea of what are potentially available, but I would like to consider all possibilities.
Do you think any potential deficit could be solved without raising taxes, Mr. Pittman?
I am hopeful that it can, because I've heard from quite a number of constituents or people that would be my constituents should I win, that have told me that property taxes are quite high in the areas that I'm campaigning. Others have talked about the level of state income taxes quite a bit higher, that are forcing people to actually move out of this area. And that's something that is of concern, because if they have the ability, whether they're retired or not, are still a wage earner, if they're moving out of this area, that's a concern for longevity of revenue coming into the state.
Senate District 31 is made up of rural school districts. They have unique problems. When the next state budget is debated and it comes to public funding of schools, what are going to be your priorities, sir?
Well, first of all, I believe in school choice, and I think that's something that I want to keep on the front burner.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we can come up with a plan that we can keep school choice available to parents and their children. And as far as the rural schools, we've had this talk even when the Democrats were in control of all the branches. And it's the fact that the rural school districts probably come on the short end of the stick versus the urban school districts. We don't necessarily have the votes in the rural areas of legislative votes that can move that to a more equal funding. So is it time for a different type of funding situation in general? It might be, but I'm not sure we can get that done. They did help out the rural school districts a little bit with some extra transportation aids to some of the districts. Right. It's minimal, but there again, it's a little bit better. One of the other things I've learned about our rural schools is, for example, Plum City, where I graduated from over 40 years ago, my class sizes were about 35, 36 students. and today they're less than half of that. So I think we need to examine, what's the cost of these students going into our public schools, and what's the output. I hate to say it in some ways, but schools are kind of like a business in the sense that you have to work with the dollars you have available. And if your output of students is less than half of what it used to be from many years back, maybe we need to find better ways and new ways of getting our children educated.
Just to follow up on the choice issue, right now there's an outstate enrollment cap of 1,000 statewide participants in the choice program. The Assembly Speaker would like to see the 1,000 limit taken off. Do you think it should be taken off?
I would be cautious with that limit. I would proceed maybe more cautiously and not allow things to become completely open, in a sense that we can do whatever we want. I need to do more research myself as a candidate on the school choice and how that funding interacts with public schools. I know that the vouchers are, I believe it's around $5,900 or is it around $7,000 per student, and that does impact the public schools. I just want to be, I'm more cautious in the fact that I think we want to approach that slower, and maybe if we do raise the cap, let's raise it minimally on a year-by-year basis and see where that gets us, so we don't end up digging ourselves into a deep hole.
Since our last interview, Governor Walker has called for Wisconsin to withdraw from the Common Core standards. Your position on that?
I think that's the right decision. Common Core, we can do better than Common Core, and I think that our local school districts need to have a little more, have the ability to put on the agenda what they feel is important in their regions and their districts to educate the students. And so I believe we can do better than Common Core, and I'll just leave it at that.
Transportation funding, there's a new estimate that the next state budget just for transportation could be 600, 700 million short. How should any deficit be filled, sir?
I believe we need to find new sources of revenue for the transportation fund. We can't keep operating in a deficit. Vehicles are getting better gas mileage. With electric cars being more prevalent on our roads, they're not paying anything towards the sales tax of gas that we use to fund our roads. So vehicle registration is something that I would look at quite a bit. And then there's, I want to have it as equal as I can across the board for the people that are using the highways. And yet we still got to be cognizant of the fact that if we price ourselves out of a market, for example, if we raise our gas tax too high, we will lose a lot of revenue coming in gas sales because people will fill up out of state.
If you're looking for a new source of revenue, then you don't sound like you'd be willing to raise the gas tax or the $75 annual fee on vehicles.
Yes, and vehicle registration, that would be certainly one of the areas I would look at. And if it was gas tax, it would probably be a very minimal increase. Okay. To see where it would take us.
Health care. 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents gets their health care through our Medicaid system. The American Hospital Association says that our Medicaid reimbursement rates are second lowest among all states. If you've studied the issue, do you think those rates should be increased, sir?
I haven't studied it very little, actually. My concern is, we provide a lot of services to the people in our communities and whatnot through government programs. My goal is to help people empower their lives and get them on their own feet and less dependent on government. Because from where we've been and where we are today and where we could be down in the future, we're going to find ourselves in an increasingly difficult time to fund a lot of these programs. I think people need to step up and take more responsibility for themselves. So at this point, I would probably not change the ranking or the payment on Medicaid programs. Okay.
Probably of any other Senate district, number 31 has more frac sand mines than anything. They've just exploded. There's a debate in the Capitol that there should be statewide standards set and local governments shouldn't go beyond it. Or do you think the regulation of frac sand mines is purely a local control issue, sir?
I believe that local control is a very important item that needs to be used or available to the people. What I'm hearing from multiple units of government is some of the counties and towns may be opposed to it, and then the city, a city in particular, may come out and annex some land involving an area where there is a mine and allowing the process to move forward. Well, I think that's part of it is poor communication between the units of government. One's working against the other one rather than together. But I think the part I want to impress upon about local control is those are the people that have to live within those areas where the mining is occurring. I think they should have some say-so on what happens there. But we need to strike a balance too, because we're in a situation where with the frac sand mining industry, we can help supply more of our energy needs for our country. And I believe that's a very important thing to keep in the back of our minds, because the way things are going in the world today, with all the turmoil and fighting that's going on, if we were to be very dependent on foreign oil, that would really jeopardize any recovery in our economy and increase costs of transportation dramatically. So I think we got to try to find a balance where the state might be able to provide some oversight, and the local units of government would have the ability to allow it to happen in areas where maybe a more rural areas that are more available to rail cars rather than trucks running down our roads and destroying our roads. So,
as you talk to voters in the Senate District 31, just to follow up on frac sand, do they say these frac sand mines are generally pretty good neighbors, or do they have concerns?
They're all across the board from what I've been hearing. We have some that have been very good. They've put money back in the communities, local communities that they operate in. And there's been some that have been in violation. And that's where our DNR, Department of Natural Resources, needs to, and that's where they have been monitoring what's going on with these mines, how they're operating, are they meeting the regulations that are in place. And one of the other things that I've heard from people is they're concerned about an eyesore that's going to be left over when they're done. Well, most county permits that would allow mining like that have to have a reclamation plan in place. And if the concern is there, then let's have them get bonded or post some type of bond so that there is money available when the mining operations are done in case they happen to fly out of town at the last minute.
It's not in the 31st District, but are you being asked your position on the Gogebic taconite mine in Ashland and Iron counties, or hasn't it come up?
That's one that has not come up at all. So I guess when I saw your questions, that was the first time I've seen that, and okay. I'm not sure where to go with that.
Understand. The bill legalizing medical marijuana will come back next session. Now we see the states of Colorado and Washington legalize recreational marijuana. Your position on that issue?
Medical marijuana, I guess if the medical community can document how it can make people's lives better through a medical prescription or whatever, I would be open to considering that. Just regular recreational marijuana, at this point, I'm not opposed to that.
Okay. First offense, drunken driving. Should it be a crime, sir?
Yes, it should be.
It should be.
Yes.
I want to give you a chance to highlight differences between you and the Senator Weinhaupt, who's your opponent on November 4.
I guess the one thing I would just say about that, Steve, is if I felt that we were being represented very well or good by Senator Weinhaupt, I wouldn't be running. So I think there's an opportunity to have better representation for this district, and that's why I'm running.
You have objected to her plan to provide free tuition for attending tech schools and the 13 UW extension schools. Why?
Because I believe that whether any student going to school, they need to have some skin in the game. They need to financially put something towards their education. Otherwise, I think we turn out with a lesser product, a lesser level of education. Whenever you hand out a freebie, people typically don't appreciate it as well as if something they've actually earned. And that's the reason why. And I'm not sure the state has that much money also that we could afford to give out free tuition for those 2 years.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mel Pittman of Plum City is a Republican running in Senate District 31. The election is November 4. Mr. Pittman, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
You bet. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thank you.